All right, we are live. Good evening, everybody, to Adventures in Truth podcast version or episode number 25. Is that possible? Yeah. 25. Hey, come on, big fist pump right here. Wow, 25.
Welcome to our 25th episode.
Oh, man. Right on. And thank you for anybody that's actually listened to all 25 of them. That's pretty cool, too. We're hoping that this can continue to be a source of entertainment, information, transparency, authenticity, humor, joy, sorrow, the whole bag. We want to kind of bring the whole bag, whatever that is, of human experience into our discussions, and being willing to boldly go where no man has gone before in willingness to explore truth.
Yes.
And what is that? What is this doggone thing we keep? It's a word everybody knows, and you learn how to spell it when you're in kindergarten, and you think you got a handle on what it is, but man, you start pushing into that, like we've, stumbled and pushed and nudged and tripped and backed out and regrouped and gone in again, and it's like, it's so darn elusive. So, at least it is to me. It's so elusive. And I used to think that I really had a handle on this thing called truth. I really did. As like, man, I'm a disciple of the truth. And I meant that literally at one point in my life. That was a religious, scholarly combination kind of a pursuit. And certainly as a scientist, a behavioral scientist, and even, getting in dabbling in physics and the stuff that I did in aviation in the Marine Corps, that there's a lot of science and a lot of A plus B equals C, and just all that different stuff of just this, you do this and this is the outcome. And boy, you start putting the human mind and emotions behind that, and A squared plus B squared sometimes equals C squared, but sometimes it doesn't. And therefore you don't have truth. Everything is not repeatable and confirmable with the scientific model. As much as we love to believe in the scientific model, there are maybe many times where it holds up, but there's also times when it doesn't. And that's where we're entering into this discussion, and it's a fun place. It's a fun thing to do. And Jim and I are kicking around the idea tonight of making this a little bit more personable and personal in the way of sharing some things been going on in our lives the last week or so. Timothy has been on a trip to Bali for the last couple of weeks, and perhaps he'll be back with us again next week. We miss him, and I hope he's having a great time. But it's Jim and I again tonight. Jim, would you like to say hello to everybody tonight?
Hi, everybody. Good to be here. I'm 3 days from the big move, and the world's been good, other than emotionally crashing around my ankles.
Yes, indeed.
And I brought baggage today.
Nice. So we're going to open up. Jim's willing to let us open up some of those bags.
I came with bags.
And I'm going to also be bold and daring and share a little bit of my bags as well. It's one of the things that I've come to love and know about Jim is his willingness to be transparent and authentic, and not hide behind anything, and just be who he is, and just talk about who he is. And I really, really admire that. That's something I don't get to see very often, maybe anywhere other than in my practice. People pay me. They come in on a regular basis, week after week, sometimes for long periods of time, to have an experience of being authentic and transparent with a human being, me, who they're paying to listen to them and try to help them understand who they are and how they are and why they do what they do and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, they get to walk out of the office knowing that I'm not going to follow them home. I'm not going to talk to anybody in their world, that they have a little bit of freedom with me that's hopefully not responding to them in a way of judgment, and hopefully love and understanding and compassion and encouragement to continue to explore and delve into their interests and desires and fantasies and fears and all of that. But that's a little bit of a deviation from what I admire about Jim is Jim's not paying me, and we're not in a therapeutic office right now, and he's willing to, in a recorded fashion, which is even more admirable, talk about his life and his experiences in the context of truth, of what he thought it was, of what we thought it was, and how for perhaps at moments along the way, truth seemed to evade or elude even a guy as crafty and as smart and as together as Jim is. There are times, myself included, and sometimes even on a bi-weekly or monthly basis where, quote unquote, I lose my shit. And
that was how I started the conversation with Jeff tonight.
So tonight's conversation is the truth about losing our shit. And a way that I would like to define what that means to me is composure, stability, contentment. Those would be three words that I'd pile on to what lose my shit means. Do you want to? What does that mean to you, Jim?
For me, it's an experience of being or feeling completely out of control.
Yeah.
Not being able to find anywhere to anchor or ground my energy because it's so huge and so aggressively stimulated, or I don't even know what the word is.
What's the it? It's so aggressively stimulated. What's the it?
My energy, my emotion, my process. So this move has been so far, for me at least in perception, has been very, very smooth. It's been, we talked a little bit about being in ease and flow, and that's really where I like to live. And yet there is, so Sunday I go to my mom's for dinner, and I was a little cranky when I got there. I have to admit, I didn't share that part. And it was just stupid things. It was little things. I think I had lost something that day too. I've in the last 2 or 3 days, there's been this rash of losing things, which I never do. Mm-hmm. And I say that, I know never is a word that you don't typically like to use, but for me, I just don't. I'm not that unconscious. So, and I don't mean that as an insult. I mean just I know me, and I'm aware of my. I'm present in my world and in my reality. So if I have things like reading glasses, I'm aware of them. So wherever I go, I'm aware of my reading glasses because I know I need them. So I have places and ways that I put them with my body or on my body so that I know where they are. And I lost a pair of glasses, and I lost a key fob, and I just stirred me up like crazy. But the worst of it was going to dinner, which was supposed to be a lovely barbecue, that turned into a brawl. I have a how detailed do we want to be?
It's entirely up to you.
So,
and anybody that you know that might listen to this that could possibly be offended by it, that we wouldn't want to ever do. So just put it out there to the degree that you can keep it on topic and in point with, how, without hurting anybody's feelings.
Well, and the idea is not to, with anyone that's involved in this, it's, please understand that for me, it's about me. Meaning that regardless of what was going on, while there may be some culpability in other areas for things, I'm attempting to address my lack of control, because that's what's really devastated me in this process, because I'm really okay with sharing things that may not be comfortable with people. So if there's something that's bothering me and I have to sit and say, hey, can we have a conversation? I'm usually good with that. And I try to keep my space clean that way. But so my brother and I have a very different. My brother and his wife and kids were there, and my partner was there, and my mom, and my brother and I are only a little over a year apart. And over the course of years, we've grown very close. He's I think, come to appreciate, the my counsel and support. He's been through a lot. He's been through a lot of stuff, and that we've walked through together. So anyway, one of the places that we have diverged somewhat paths, it seems, is in the political arena. And I learned early on after this recent election with the new president that it was not a topic that was healthy for us to go to, because there was some self-righteousness and some other energies that just didn't feel good. And I tried to have a conversation at one point, and it wasn't even 2 sentences into the conversation that it became intense the first time. And this was back just after, not long after the election, and I learned at that point that just wasn't a topic to go into. And both and my mom actually voted for the current president, but she and I never talk about it. It's not something she has her reasons why she did, and she's not dissatisfied, although she doesn't like him and doesn't like the way he acts and thinks he's a complete buffoon and all of that. But that only came out as a result of my meltdown in the middle of dinner.
So we've got meltdown, losing your shit,
yeah,
and something to do with control. That's all on the table right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So I had come across a video because one of the things about this time, particularly with this president and this government and all of the stuff that's going on, is I've spent a lot of time observing the dynamic that's occurring with people. That there can be such a gargantuan divide between what I see and what you see, and we're living in the same world, on the same planet, in the same country, looking at the exact same things, and yet the perception is completely different. The understanding of it, or to me sometimes it seems like the delusion doesn't make sense. But so I'd come across a video a story online that I thought was really powerful, because it didn't address things from us and them. It just addressed it as people having two very distinct and very different perceptions of how the world works. One very kind of patriarchal, the other not so patriarchal. So, and that doesn't even really give it the full gist. But in my thought process as I read it, I went, holy crap, this is amazing. This really speaks to what's creating this divide. Because the two different camps are looking at the world from completely diametrically opposite positions. And so there's no bridges. Anyway, I thought in my own delusion that it would be a place that he and I could meet in conversation, because it wasn't about him and it wasn't about anything but people from my perspective. So I thought, this is great. We can have a dialogue about this, and I'll get to hear from him how he sees that dynamic, and is that something, does he see it in the same fashion or a little different, or what's his perception of it? And so I was kind of like, this could be a cool conversation. Within a minute of me bringing it up, I didn't remember the specifics, as far as, I don't like to try to convey concept if I don't have a good sense of the words, and I didn't.
Right.
So I pulled the article up and I'm skimming through trying to find the words, and I'm getting a little anxious because I want to make sure that I'm conveying to him the essence of what I'd read, without it sounding like I'm trying to attack or put down or go after, because that's really not what it was about. But that didn't last. At least on my perception, on coming from him, it turned into what I'm sure many have experienced and continue to experience, which was the immediate attack on, well, Obama's the one who really screwed all this up, and Trump is really doing an amazing job, and why don't you want to know the truth, and why aren't you
the truth?
Yeah, and I've been reading all this stuff, and I've been reading everything about this, and so I know exactly what's going on.
So he knows the truth.
He knows why all the people that got fired. He knows why that's Obama's fault, not Trump's fault. He knows, and it's this self-righteous, it's just an energy that I have no tolerance for at all. And that was the moment where the shit started to get lost.
So I want to pause for a moment.
No, please. Yeah. helped me regroup the conversation.
When I get to a place like that, it isn't because I know better. It's because I know what we're talking about is really unknowable. There is no way we're ever going to know anything about what happens in Washington, D.C.
No.
It's truly unknowable.
I agree.
So it's impossible to take a position because it's not knowable.
Right. It's all based on assumption, what you think you know, what you've heard, but none of it is. We're not standing in his office watching these conversations or being a part of these conversations or being involved in the dynamics.
And even if we were, it'll change tomorrow. Mm-hmm. It's shifting sand. There's no truth in any of it.
Yeah. It's very, yes.
So, but we really want one. We really want, instead of that being shifting sand, we want that to be solid concrete.
Well, and that's what I was bringing. I was bringing a truth. You know, I was... So he knows. Let's go back. I'm sorry I interrupted you. He believes he knows and is very comforted with that information that he believes is truth and he knows. And loves to use it to pound people into submission about his viewpoint.
To join his truth.
He wouldn't agree with that perception. So I'll tell you that straight up.
To pound people?
Yeah.
He doesn't think he's pounding.
No, he thinks he's being magnanimous. He thinks he's being
educating.
He's educating.
Okay.
He's sharing, and has no clue how ugly his energy gets about it. No clue. Even when he saw the extremity of my reaction, he went more into his space. He went more into that self-righteous, I'm not doing anything. I'm not saying that. I'm not being that way. Like, you're doing it right now. That attitude right there is it, you know. And so anyway, when I say I lost my shit, it started with, as soon as I felt his energy come on me, because that's what it felt like. It felt like that feeling of somebody's all on me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he wasn't up in my face. His voice got louder. He got a little louder. He got a little more pointed, but his energy was, I don't know if it was, you're gonna get this, or I'm gonna move the illusion out of your space, so you know, whatever. But it was, and as soon as I felt it, his wife was sitting across the table, and I looked at him and I said, "Stop. Right now, stop the conversation." "No, you don't want to know the truth, Tony. Stop."
That's a line from Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, and he kept talking, and I said, "Stop now. We are not going to, this is not what I intended in this conversation. This is not the conversation I want to have. No, stop." And he kept going, and he kept going, and I finally stood up and said, "Then I'm leaving.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to stay here and listen to this. I'm not going to participate in it. I'm done." And I walked away, and as I'm walking away, "Oh, so you're going to walk away because you don't want to hear the truth? Oh, you're going to walk away because you're too much of a pussy to hear blah, 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 blah." And I just went, phew, and I went in the house, and I'm at my mom's house. So I'm in the house, and I'm just pacing, trying to settle myself down. And my mom's in there finishing up cooking, and she asked what was going on, and I tried to not get into it because she's a supporter, and so she's not going to go anywhere but in the same direction. So she's a supporter of Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just didn't feel like that was a place to really have a conversation. And I wasn't trying to have a conversation. I just was trying to get my energy under control. And it kept spinning and spinning, and I'm breathing, and I'm doing everything I know how to come to a centered place. And I got to maybe 25%. And I thought, okay, I can at least think the sentence, "My name is Jim," in one fell swoop. I can have that thought, and I can have the next thought. So I'm obviously starting to settle down. It's not this mash of noise and crazy going on in my head. So I decided to go back out. And it just started all over again. And I am standing in the back patio in front of my entire family, screaming at my brother about what an unmitigated asshole he is, and what a complete jerk he is, and how he's not hearing anything I'm saying. And he's going, "Oh yeah, Obama this," and "Oh yeah, Hillary that." And I fucking lost it again. And I'm like,
Why are you making it about that? That is not what I brought to the table. I brought a conversation about people. I wanted to have a conversation with my brother about what I was observing in people. I'm not having a political conversation. I'm not, and my mother is sitting here the whole time trying
Right.
to assuage me, calm me down. She's kind of like looking at me like, what is going on? And, you know, she would say, Jim, it's okay. I love you. Relax. I love you too. But he is not going to fucking do this to me again. And then she, poor thing, decided to make a statement that just pushed me over the edge even further, because she called me a Democrat. And I looked at her and I said, I am not a fucking Democrat. I am not in a box. I'm not in any of those boxes. I couldn't tell you what their frickin' party line is. I couldn't tell you what their stories are. I don't give a shit. It's not my game. I'm not in it. I don't care. This is about people. That's not my thing.
Right.
I am not in that stupid little box. And she just was like, You know, she didn't really know what to do with it, but the truth of it was, wake up, people. We're not all locked in little boxes.
Right.
And I'm certainly not one of them. I don't think that way. I don't feel that way. I'm about energy all the time, every day, every way. So when energies are going like opposite of each other and not connecting in any useful fashion, that's fascinating to me, how human beings cannot connect in the same language.
Right.
About the same topic.
I'm an American would be one thing you could have admitted to. I'm
Yeah.
not a Democrat, but I am an American.
Yeah. But even that's charged. Even that now has a thing about it. You know, it's in the paradigm that Trump has created
Yeah.
in this world. And we've all participated in it. Obviously, it's where it is because we're all participating in some fashion. But in any case, and again, that's not about politics. That's about energy. And I said that loud on purpose.
So this went on.
So your brother thought he had the truth, and your mother thought she had the truth.
Yeah.
And you're trying to drive it back toward an observation of what's happening in the political arena regarding the American people.
Just people.
Mm-hmm.
Just people. And that led to, you know, for me to be in the moment of feeling that out of control is unbelievably disconcerting.
So can we
So-
define that, please? Control versus out of control?
Yes, because control is not for me about I manage every single thing that happens in my world. It means that typically if something comes on me emotionally that is especially negative, my first inclination is to take a step back and to get into my center and like, whoa, time out. What's going on here? Why is this impacting me in this negative fashion? And typically I can catch it before it starts to overwhelm me. For some reason, this overwhelmed me instantly. Like, there was no downtime. It didn't feel like there was any gap. And I'm sure there was somewhere, but as I thought through the process, it seemed like everything in the process building up to it was leading to that end result. And there was nothing I could do about it, which really freaked me out and still has me freaked out. Because I don't understand why. I don't understand how that's possible. So
There was what's the it and nothing I could do about it?
being that out of control, going to that place and not being able to stop it. Like, even in the throes of the act of, you know, at one point my mother was Jim, just sit down and let me talk for a minute. Let me talk for a minute. Just try to sit down. Can you just listen for a second? The act of will that it took for me to put my ass in a chair and not talk for even 30 seconds was Herculean to me. Swear to God, it was the most difficult thing I'd ever done because everything coming out of their mouths was total horse shit from my perspective. It was total crap.
Which is different than bullshit somehow. I guess.
It's a greater degree.
Oh, okay.
And the horse feels really good coming out of the mouth. It's like, but it was not the conversation I was having. So then my brother turns it around. How do you want me to respond? what did you want me to say? I'm like, this has nothing to do with what I want you to say. Tell me how I would, tell me how you would want me to respond in the way that would make it okay with you. I'm like, what are you talking about? It has nothing to do with that. How about listening to what the conversation was meant to be about and not what you decided to make it about? Let's try that. But tell me the words you want me to say. I'm like,
Wow.
I'm not your mother, and I'm not going to tell you how to talk. And this is not about me controlling your expression. This is about, I brought something to the table. I brought the conversation up. I brought it to you. I did all that in hopes of having a conversation that would bridge the gap, not cause a bigger one. And you couldn't go there. That's what I want you to acknowledge. You couldn't go there. You had to go down your little, whatever that is. You know?
But I'm still sitting in all of that going on, and I'm deep inside going, this has got to stop. What is going on with me? What is happening right now? What are you feeling? What are you experiencing? What is it that's got you so amped and so off the charts crazy that you, because this is not me. It is obviously me, but it's not my modus operandi.
Yeah, when you said I can't stop it, and you were talking about control,
Yeah.
and you said, you followed it up by saying I can't stop this from happening. What's happening and how you're responding to what's happening, to me, are two different issues.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're talking about losing your shit, it's like both are going on at the same time. I'm not able to control what's happening, and I'm not able to control myself in what's
In
happening.
it, right? Yeah.
So there's two things. And number one, we can't control what's happening. We can choose to be part of it or not be a part of it sometimes. But it's very challenging for me when number one is going awry and I don't seem to have an exit strategy, or I'm not choosing that. And number two...
And didn't know you were going to need one.
Right. The parachute... I didn't know I was going to need a parachute.
I didn't know I was jumping out of a
And now
plane.
that I've pulled it, it's got a big hole in it. And it feels like I'm hurling to the earth. So I'm out of control too, which means I can't control myself. I've let my emotions really have their way with me. And that doesn't feel good.
No.
So we got to ask, where is all that coming from? Because it's a charge. It's both energetic and it's chemical, and it's been stockpiling. It's the
Apparently.
It's the brigade that has been stockpiling the dynamite, and somebody lit the freaking fuse.
My brother and I have had a very good relationship for many years. He became somebody different, and I, as weird as this sounds, he became somebody different after this election. In my way of thinking, because he went to this place of needing to, I don't know what the word is. Like he would get online and he would just pontificate at people, which he didn't think he was doing, but on the outside, we even talked about it in the conversation. My dad and I talked about it, and my dad was like, "What is going on with him?" And I'm like, "I have no idea. I don't even know who he is." It's like this person who's doing all this. I know the facts. Let me clear this up for you. And how's that working for you?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those, when people have their. So how's that working for you? And so it's created, and I shared this with him, it's created some distance between he and I, because it's a big deal that we can't have that conversation without it going down some ugly place. And not that I care to have political conversations very often, but that there's nowhere to go in that arena at all, apparently. But he's gone through a lot. I mean, he addressed some addiction issues, and is doing very, very well, and for a long time. I've been there for many key elements of things that have happened in his life, and we've been close, and I've offered a lot of support and counsel and intervention, but there's something happened there was a part of the conversation that got really kind of uncomfortable, because one of the transitions that took place is that there was a point that he stepped out in the marriage, and we talked every other day, as he was trying to process through, his spouse's reaction and all the stuff he was dealing with in the relationship as a result, because it's a family and blah, blah, blah. And that went on for, I don't know, a year and a half. And I was working with him for a while, and that helped us get even closer. And then turnabout took place, and she stepped out, and he completely shut me out. He didn't actually ever tell me about it. I heard about it third party, so it was not something that he even shared with me. Not only did he not share it, he didn't talk about it. He never called. So for a good year or better, we basically haven't talked. But very peripherally, quick little conversation here, conversation there, which was vastly different than where we were before. And there were other issues of things. We had a family trip that we went to Yosemite, and some incidences there happened. But I thought those had gotten addressed there, because I had addressed them there. And while the answer to the problem or to the situation wasn't necessarily to my liking, it was still addressed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was up to me then how I was going to accept or not accept the answers. So I'm really good. But somebody tells me what their reality is, and it's not altering, then I'm good with giving them the space to have their reality. That may mean that I don't ever talk to you again. But it's just because there's nothing in common, or there's nothing connecting us. So, but I'm usually, while I go through sadness or I'll go through disappointment, I'm pretty good about accepting reality that way. So it didn't occur to me that there was still an issue. He brought it up in the middle of this meltdown, in the middle of my losing my shit. He brought it up. He brought up the trip, and how he needed to address my misperception of him driving off and leaving my mother-in-law broken, sitting on the side of the road. There's more to the story. She fell on the mountain. We had to carry her down the mountain, an hour and a half down the mountain, not 10 minutes down the mountain. We had to fashion things out of sticks in order to sit her ass on something so we could carry her. It was ugly. It's freaking crazy. And then I tried to pick her up and carry her on my shoulder because I thought it'd be easier, and in doing that I broke a rib. So not only was she damaged from the fall, then I broke her rib on top of it. I'm like, oh my Lord. But there was an incident that occurred at the bottom of the hill that I wasn't in the van, don't know what happened, but they drove off and left her there. And it got resolved, but we got back to the house, and I told him exactly how I felt about it. And then we talked about some other things. But anyway, he brought it up in the conversation again. And wanted to give me the reality of what happened. And I'm like, there is no other reality of what happened. You drove up, you drove off. Well, this was happening and that was I don't care. The woman was sitting on a rock with a broken, I don't care. Your story doesn't matter. What you did was inhuman and shitty. It was nothing more than nothing less. I don't care what happened in the van. I don't care if those kids were screaming at 900 decibels. I don't care. That has no relevance to what was happening on the side of the street. No. Anyway, can you tell? Yeah.
Jim's unpacking a lot of stuff tonight.
In front of my mother and his wife and my husband, and oh, Lord have mercy. And then in the midst of all that, my husband is not fond of confrontation. And is certainly not when his husband is standing in the middle of a back patio yelling at the top of his lungs and cursing and carrying on. So he wants to end it, like, can't you guys take this offline somewhere? This isn't what we came here for. And I said, well, obviously it is. It's what we're doing. But, so, round and round we went. So, in that period that I was sitting there trying to find my center again, trying to find the thread, what I call the thread. The thread is the energetic theme or the energetic chord that is running through all of this out of controlness. Mm-hmm. And so I'm searching for that thread, because I know once I find the thread,
I'll be able to unravel this messy ball pretty quickly. I'm not finding the thread. And I'm looking for the thread, and I'm looking for the thread, and I'm looking for the thread. And so at one point I came to a place of relative calm, and I took that moment to literally stop in the midst of because at that point things were starting to settle down, but I felt like I had to acknowledge that I knew I was out of control, and I knew that this was not cool, and I knew that I needed to acknowledge and just to apologize for the group for having all of this energy that most of them didn't have any reason to have to deal with.
Right.
And at the same time, apparently this is hugely important in some fashion, because here we are. And they were supposed to leave at 4 o'clock to go to a birthday party. I think it was 6 o'clock by the time we finally got done between the brawl and winding things down. But so I got to share with him where that led was this under my feeling of frustration and disappointment and upset at the number of ways that I felt he was consistently giving me the message that I didn't matter in his life. And that from his perception, that and his wife even said, yeah, but that's not true. And I said, I'm not saying it's true. What I'm saying is there have been consistent expression and circumstances that have consistently shown up in our relationship over the course of the last year and a half that all say the same thing. Yeah. So my mind is weaving together a story that says he doesn't give a shit about me. Don't know why. Don't know why he doesn't. Don't know why he continues to go there. But that's I get it's a story, but there's been too many of those circumstances that lead me to think that that's the end result. I'm not attached to the end result, but apparently my mind is pretty definitively made up that that's an end result.
And that matters why?
Interestingly enough, that came a little bit later. Not much later. When I say a little bit later, after we talked about that stuff, I think he was starting to understand a little bit more where I was coming from, and so it was now about my emotional content and not about politics. We got away from politics and into what was going on with he and I, and why was this such a big deal. And he came over after we finally got to a point of it seemed like we got as far as we were going to get, and it was time for everybody to go. He came over and we hugged, and he said, I want you to know, I'm telling you straight up right here, right now, you absolutely matter. And regardless of what's going on, I think he said, if you called me anytime in need, I'd be there in a heartbeat. I wouldn't think about it. It wouldn't be a thought process. It would be, I'm there. And he said, I need you to know that. We probably have to talk more in depth offline at some point to go more deeply into what's going on, but that's where and as soon as he was standing there hugging me and he said he loved me, I felt the ugliest pain that I've ever felt in my life. Ugly, and when I say it was ugly, it came up. And it came with tears. It came, but it hurt. It was like, I wish I'm gonna find words, because it was not a feeling that I ever remember feeling before.
Wow.
It was dirty, and it was dark, and it was painful. And as it came up, the thought that went through my head is I've put up with 54 years of that asshole treating me like I don't matter. I'm not going to put up with it from you. And the asshole was my father. Not putting up with from you was like, I don't deserve this from you. I put up with listening to that asshole tell me that, I don't give a shit about him and that I don't care and everything I do is all about me and nothing about anybody else. And I mean, it's just been a whole long lineage of nonsense. And there happens to be an issue around him at the current time. He assisted me financially to transition from the center. It was something he offered me. I did not solicit from him. which shocked me beyond belief because money is not something we do. It's like I've been on my own since I was 15. Money is not something we typically deal with, and I'm not terribly good at dealing with it overall. I'm not bad, but I mean, I'm still alive and I'm 54 and I can pay my bills, and but I don't have the money gene in that regard where they do. My dad and my brother are all about the money thing and all about understanding it and knowing how, doing that whole thing. And I just, that's never been my thing. But I personally ran into some snags, and I was paying him a sizable chunk of money when I still had the center to pay off the loan. And then as the center closed down and things were changing for me, I was now trying to have clients and drive Lyft, and so my income was inconsistent, and I stopped sending payments and told him what was going on, and all I got was, you obviously put me last on the list instead of first on the list, and I said, well, truth be told, probably, but there are other things that I think are of greater importance in my life right now, bill-wise, that I had to make a choice. And it isn't that I'm not wanting to take care of this. I will take care of this. I just have, I had a $7,000 tax bill that I was not expecting, that I had to figure out, and for me, that's not about, oh my God, I got to figure this out. It's like, okay, I've got this thing now. I got to take a step back and sit with this and feel my way into how do I want to handle this? What am I going to do? Because I don't feel like it's right. Like the error happened because of an error I made in doing the return. So I had to go, wait a second. I apparently don't know. I really don't know a lot. So it was a choice of finding a professional to take care of going back through and doing the taxes, so that I could see if I could do that, but I had to pay somebody to do that. So it was another outlay of money that I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna deal with this, and then that's gonna let me know where I am here. And fortunately that paid off well. She was able to find quite a bit that my ignorance missed. So it was a good thing, and it was a good choice. But in any case, the thing that's been true for me about this debt with him is that I literally think about it every single day. And I'm not making that up. I'm not exaggerating it. I literally think about it every single day. Because it bothers me to have that sitting there and feeling like I can't do anything about it. And this is where the money thing for me gets a little weird.
So that's another control. That takes us back to control.
Yeah.
I can't do anything about it.
Thinking that I couldn't, and then having the epiphany of realizing that the story was I was sending him $800 a month to pay this loan back, and then I couldn't pay that. So I just assumed that he would not want $50. That my $50 wasn't going to be much about nothing. So I was like, well, I'm not going to waste the time sending him $50. I'll just get myself together and then I'll start paying him back. But again, every day, when I say every day, because in my meditation, in my just my daily thought process, is there a way I can deal with this today? Is there a way I can move the needle on this thing today? And then came full circle to the whole idea of, well, in order for me to honor the agreement, it doesn't matter if he likes what I send him, he gets what I send him. But I'm still sending him money. I'm still honoring the agreement by sending something to honor the agreement, which I haven't been doing. And then I was like, ugh, bonehead, why didn't you think about that 6 months ago? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know why I didn't think about it 6 months ago. I didn't, because I don't typically think that way. I already had the story that I couldn't send him a chunk of money, so because I can't send him a sizable chunk of money right now, I'll wait till I can.
Yeah.
Whether, which means multiple hundred, not necessarily what I was originally sending, because I don't have that capacity right now. But anyway, so I just got all long-winded about that for no good reason, I think. But the point being that at that moment of interchange with my brother, my dad showed up, and I went, okay, why? Because that one I've processed to death and back. It's not. Again, it's that thing of I've confronted that. I've stood in the face of that, and we've had many conversations, my father and I, and have come miles over the course of my lifetime from where we were when I left home. But he's still who he is, to some degree. There's been modification, there's been some change, but when it comes down to it, he's still the same old person. We'll leave it there. So, and then, just because I thought I'd have some more fun, I'm up and moving to Colorado in 3 days. While I'm trying to get rid of 75% of the shit that I own so that I can travel with the 25% of the shit that I have. And dealing with, Michael dealing with his process around this, because I sort of dropped it on him like a truckload of bricks. And, so left the... By the end, everybody was good. It was bizarre to me because that I unleashed that kind of energy and everybody seemed to be fine. On one end was like, thank you God, I don't know who up there is trying to help me, or if my guides or friends or whoever was putting buffers out, but apparently I didn't decimate the whole crowd. Because in history, that was my MO.
Yeah.
In history, they were all on the floor. I mean, bleeding, whatever. I mean, not literally, but, energetically. If I went there 15 years ago, you all were on the floor. Because it was, I wasn't done until you were on the floor, And it was, that was the part that bothered me so much, was just that irrationalness in it. The inability to feel like I had any say in what my emotional state was doing. So we left, and Michael asked me how I was doing on the way home, and I said, I'm still processing. It didn't go to resolution. We didn't get resolution today. We got some peace at the end of it, but there was no resolution. So I'm not really sure what the resolution is, or if there is one, but it feels very incomplete. Maybe because the use of that energy cannot have any other result. I don't know.
Okay.
I really don't have an answer for
Okay.
that, because I still feel, I called my mom yesterday, and she was fine. She was good, and I said, I just want to again acknowledge and apologize for going off the rails, and that's not how I operate. She's like, yeah, I know that. You don't. But the other thing that was striking, just to finish this, was the last moment that I had with my mom. Well, so on top of all of that, then I find out from my best friend that my mother-in-law is talking shit about me. And my mother-in-law has decided that I'm using her son for his money, and in some drunken state, she decided to trash me to our closest friend about what a useless human being I apparently am.
She doesn't know you.
She's known me for 9 years.
No, she doesn't really know you.
Apparently
if she
not.
could say something like that.
She was a client. She was a client on my table.
Wow.
Yeah, she went through the whole 22 sessions. But anyway, so that had me pretty weirded out, pretty upset. And that came. That came the next day after the deal with being up in with my family. That happened the next day. Was the story about her trashing.
Pile on.
So
it's a dog pile.
And now I'm like, now I'm starting to freak out seriously, because I'm like, what is going on?
No kidding.
With all of these people and all of this stuff, and what is this? And so that led to Michael made plans so we could hang out with her before we leave on Saturday. And I was driving this morning going, there's no way in hell I'm going to sit at a dinner with her. If that's what she's got going on, why would I want to sit at a dinner?
You said she was drunk. You
Yes.
said drunken.
Yeah. Come to find out, she doesn't remember saying any of it. But long and short of that was, another piece of having to get, again, that space, getting back into my space and saying, okay, if I confront her, there's no good that can come of that experience from my perception, because I don't know that I could stay in control. I just had an experience where I couldn't. Just the day before, over something that wasn't even as emotionally charged, but I can still feel it. I can still feel that, and throughout the course of my day, I can feel that energy show up in my irritation levels, and over stupid things, over things that don't even matter. But I'm like, and so I'm doing my exercises to try to keep myself as centered as I can. But so I came home to Michael this morning and said, hey, I really need to talk about this, and I think this is not going to make you very happy. And he went, ugh. I said, I'm sorry, but I need you to talk to your mom. I need you to find out what the heck's going on here. And the first 15 minutes of the conversation was him trying to get my words. Like, so what do you want me to say? How do you want me to say it? I don't know how to convey this. Wouldn't it be easier if we all just sat there and then you could talk to her? And I'm like, you're missing the point altogether here. Let's try this from a different perspective. Does it not upset you that your mother thinks I'm a douchebag? Does that not bother you at all, that I'm your husband and she thinks I'm a douchebag using you for your money? Is that not upsetting to you in any form or fashion? And he looked at me and said, yes, it's upsetting to me. And I said, then talk about your upset. Don't talk about mine. Talk about yours.
Right.
That's where you're going to get the answers. Talk to her about your experience. Talk to her that you heard this. Take ownership. Take ownership of it and share your feeling about it and see where it goes. It took him all day. Well, it took him 2 hours to talk to me after that conversation. Like, to say anything to me after we talked about it. And then he was okay, and then as he got more okay, and then it was like 3:30 and we're supposed to meet at 4:30. And I'm like, have you talked to your mom? He's like, no, I've been trying to figure out and kind of sort through and figure out what I have to say. And then I thought he was going to go to I want to make sure I'm conveying what you want to say. But it went a whole different direction. He, in his own thought process, realized that when I first dropped the bomb about moving to Denver, he went off the rails and wasn't filtering much of anything. So the first couple days was a lot of just spewing, because people were like, well, why are you moving? What's going on? What's happening? And all he could say was, my fucking crazy husband. and whatever other choice words he used around that, but apparently it was enough choice words that he wanted to convey to me that he had done that. And so he was finally connecting. For me, it was like, oh, thank God he's connecting the dots in his own experience. He sees that A leads to B leads to C, and was acknowledging that he did that. The good news is that I already knew that, because I knew that he was going through it. So it wasn't a big deal to me that was happening, but it's a big deal that he owned it, because he contributed to some form or another of his mother's insecurity.
Sure, yeah.
And that's what he owned. And so he went and had that conversation with his mom and said, hey, when this first happened, yeah, I freaked out, but I'm totally on board. I'm super excited. He said, actually, this is something I've wanted to do for a long time, and Jim actually has the guts to do it, which is pretty remarkable, and that he's persisting in doing it. He said that's it's all good. And he said, and I'm a little concerned because I heard some things, and this is what I heard, and she didn't remember any of it. But very interesting, because I started to tell you about my mom at the very end of the conversation on Sunday, just before I left, and it happened with Rose too. When the final moments before we were leaving, my mother looked at me with so much love, I thought I was just going to fall apart right there in the driveway. Like, where's my, I need, like, like that kind of, like, what a piece of shit I am kind of feeling, But the unbelievable intensity of her love for me in that moment, still, I still see her face. I still see her eyes just glowing, looking at me. And that was the exact same thing Rose had in her eyes tonight. That same level of love and appreciation and glow in her eyes when she looked at me. And yeah, I still don't know how that happens. You know? Just blows my mind.
Hold that. What you got right there. That feeling. Yeah.
It's cool.
You don't have to know it,
Right.
but I'm inviting you to feel
To
it.
have it. Own it. Keep it.
That's beautiful. That really is. That's,
You know.
you got there.
Yeah. Some of the other interesting things. I came home after that brawl at the family and decided to take the article down because I had forgotten what I had learned the last time I tried to do something that was even considered moderately political. Is that it just attracts this horrible energy. It attracts this ugly, horrible energy that I don't want around me, and is no reason to have around me. But I thought this was going to be a bridge, and so when I got home, I deleted the article because I don't want any trace of that energy out there. I just like, go away. Don't want this here. It doesn't need to be here. And the next day, interestingly enough, my husband found the article and posted it.
It's the booger that won't get off your finger.
Yeah, but he posted it with a very positive, this was such a cool article. It really helped me a lot to understand this is really cool. And I was like, wow. Again, this just, to me, that is such an extraordinary statement of love and support. He didn't say anything. He didn't try to draw my attention to it. He just did it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh my gosh. And then a little bit later, I noticed he had put a comment to my brother. Tony, this is the article Jim wanted to share with you on Sunday. It's a really cool article. I wanted him to take that down.
Yeah.
I didn't want that there, but it's his
What's
post.
that feeling right now?
Well, part of it is, by the time I got home, I wasn't absolutely clear anymore that what I thought I read was what I read. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I thought, did I gloss over stuff in the article because I so liked the concept he was presenting that I didn't pay attention to the ridiculous details in it? You know, like maybe there were some tonal issues, or the writer may have made some comments that were leaning one direction or another. I didn't pay attention because I was so engrossed in the concept he was presenting. So when I went back to it and I thought, I can't be certain that is clean. So that's why I don't want the article there. But then when Michael shared it and then he followed it up with the comment, I got a little anxious because I thought, maybe I'm not correct. And then I thought, it doesn't matter. He's going to read it or not. He's going to like it or not. It doesn't matter. It just simply doesn't matter. Yeah. And then the final piece was yesterday when he came home from work. It was his last day in this market with his store. And he had this absolutely amazing moment with us together of complete surrender. All he said was, I'm done here, I'm free now. I'm off for the month. But the feeling was so unbelievably powerful of just this kind of surrender that he did, that for me it was just an acknowledgement that he was all in, and I proceeded to just fall apart. I just cried for 15 minutes. I cried. And
That's
ugly
awesome.
cry. I mean, I tried hard not to go too far, but it was I was sitting on the couch, and I apropos nothing, it would just start pouring down my face, and I just start bawling in my, and then it settled down, and I still don't feel much
in the way of resolution. All those stories, all that stuff, all that amazing and crazy stuff, and I'm still stuck on my lack of control. Interestingly enough. I don't know if we came full circle with this or not. But,
Well,
because I've been talking so much.
my truth about control is it's an illusion.
Mm-hmm. I want to be clear that when I say the word control, and I know control has a specific definition, but for me, when I say losing control is a function of, in my training and in my understanding of my own process, is there's, whenever you're confronted with anything, whether it's an emotional thing or a mental thing or a physical thing, whatever, but particularly emotionally, that there is a place that you can be in response that isn't about being activated or triggered. It's a place that you can feel the feeling without being attached to feeling the feeling. And I know that place well, so when stuff shows up, I can go kind of into that observer for a minute to find out what is this energy that's coming at me, because I don't want to be run by out of control emotion. I don't have any, it's never served me in my life. So I want to be clear about what's coming at me or what's coming out of me and why is it coming out of me. If I'm having an intense emotional response, it's very rare for me to inflict that on someone. It's more likely that I'm going to take a step back to grasp why I'm having the response, because more often than not, it's my own stuff and has nothing to do with what they're doing or saying. Whatever they said or did just caused me to go boom. So and maybe you're saying the same thing, but for me, it's not about controlling everything. It's just about recognizing that I have options in those situations. In this case, I didn't feel like I had any options.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I felt out of control. All the tools in my toolbox were useless
Right.
for a short period of time. Notice how I had to clarify for a short period of time.
Sure, yeah. I love that. So, yet there is one tool that was still in your toolbox. It was the one that was all the way at the bottom, maybe.
Yeah. Which one is that?
It's the one that says, I love myself.
Stay the course. Yeah.
I love myself. And although it seems like no one else right now is willing to love me and understand me and accept me, that's okay. It's okay. I can fill in the gap. I can love me. I haven't changed. I don't know what the hell happened here tonight. I don't know who these strange people are that all of a sudden showed up in my world very differently than what I hoped or imagined or wanted. But I know they gave me an opportunity. They took everything away. They stripped me down. I was naked in front of all of them, and I still got to say, I'm okay. I'm a good guy. I'm not trying to cause any problems here. That's the tool that was there for you, that what we call the internal validation.
Yeah, I don't want to be hearing all that.
I know. I know.
As I'm sitting here, I can feel myself push, pull, push, pull, push, pull, push, pull.
I know. But that's the one that I'm
Yeah.
playing around with too.
Yeah, no.
As I talked about in the beginning of our podcast, there was a time.
But the truth is, just to that point, is that I couldn't be sitting here now talking about it if I hadn't picked up that tool.
Oh, sure. You know the tool.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't be walking through my world if I hadn't picked. I
course,
would be in a corner somewhere.
Yeah.
Blithering and snot running down my face or something.
Nowhere did I say you don't know what that tool looks like and you've never touched it.
That's true. True that.
So how about if we put all this in context with somewhere way back when we have all read some list of stressors, and maybe insurance companies put this together. I don't know where it came from, but this idea of this list of things going on in your life. The top of the list is death of a loved one. The next one down is serious injury or illness to self. The next one down is loss of a job. The next one down is move. or major transition in your life. And so before we even get to the top 5, I can think of 2 of them going on in your world and in Michael's world. So it isn't just you going through it,
Right.
it's your relationship going through it. And so if there's a list of top 25 and there's a number, so you pluck, are these going on in your life, and each of them have a different point value, and there's a threshold at which you add them up, and you're over the threshold of things going on in your life that you cannot control. We talked before our podcast tonight. To me, it's the abyss that you're traveling into, the unknown, the abyss of the unknown.
If people, in case you guys aren't aware, I'm moving from San Diego to Colorado on Saturday. This decision was made 3 months ago, and in the course of the 3 months has been about getting rid of 80% of what we own to condense 20% of what we own into a 6 by 7 by 8 foot box that will be transported to Colorado. We do not have a place to live when we get to Colorado yet. We have planned a road trip ending with a week in Vail that will give us the ability to look for a place to live once we get there. So yeah, it's we are taking an excellent adventure.
And yet Jim is here 3 days before all this happens, taking time out to still meet and put our podcast together, which to me puts him in that level of pro versus amateur. Yep. Made a commitment, showing up, processing, opening up, dialogue, all of that. And that says a lot about who you guys are listening to, for somebody who can be sitting in front of that 3 days away and still be mindful and lucid enough to be willing to have a 2-hour dialogue, and even not even knowing what we were going to talk about tonight.
And what's even funnier, as I said to Jeff, everything with the move is fine.
Yeah. Sure it is.
It is.
It is.
The stuff is selling beautifully.
It is.
It's flying out the house. They're giving me the money I want for what I'm asking for. All across the board, everything is working out beautifully.
Right. And
I'm like, how do you lose your shit in the middle of that?
Well, let's go there. So now that we've really opened it up,
can we pause for a second? Because I don't want to lose continuity here while I run to the bathroom.
So we were talking about this graph chart, whatever point system of stressors, and you have a few of them. Mm-hmm. You have a few of the top 5, a couple in the top 5, and this always is really interesting because we talked before the podcast tonight about not making decisions under duress and trying not to do Herculean events like having a family reunion or having political discussions that are tenuous and challenging. You just were not in the place to be able to do what you were trying to do. That to me is what it comes down to. Yep. And somehow you struggled through it all, and your family members know that you can divorce spouses, but you can't divorce the family, and they gave you the love and the grace to be where you were. And somehow it seemed like you thought you'd shot some lethal rounds out or whatnot, but they all seemed to survive it, and you guys lived to love on each other another day.
No.
But as you were describing all of your experiences, Jim, I heard to me what losing my shit means is I go from the frequency of love and acceptance and tolerance and understanding and patience into this place of panic and into fear of I'm not understood, which means I won't be accepted, which means I'll ultimately be rejected, and I'm going to be alone. I'm going to be on my frickin' island. I'm going to get voted off the island. I'm going to be dog paddling out in the middle of the ocean somewhere, swallowed up by a big dragon. That's my story. The end of that story. Had you tried to do all of this at a time when you had the stability, say 6 months from now, or 6 months ago, chances are that all would have went down a bit differently. And as much as I know you to be a very sensible, straightforward, rational, logical, good thinker, good planner, that's the person that I know you to be. In some ways, in my opinion, of which I'm willing to be wrong, but I'm probably not, you are fooling yourself. You and Michael both fooling yourself to some degree of the radical, and I'm using that word on purpose, position that you find yourself in of your own choosing. You're on the high dive. Do you ever remember the very first time you did the high dive? Do you ever do the high dive? You got the normal dive and you got the high dive?
The first time, yeah. Every time.
Okay.
I love it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I love being up there.
But the first time is, what the F am I doing up here? Yeah. And, you have that just run and get it over with, or you have the walk out there, walk back, walk out there, walk back. There's a whole bunch of different ways people deal with that. And sometimes people end up climbing down the ladder and they don't pull it off. And other times people do the belly flop, and then that's like, oh my gosh, it hurts so much, I'm never going to do that again, or it's decades before they try that again. But you and Michael you're up there on the high dive, and you don't know what Colorado holds for you, and most likely it will hold awesomeness for you. And why didn't we do this sooner? Perhaps as one possibility. But until that begins to stabilize and unfold for you, you don't know. And that unknowing is unnerving, right? Unknowing equals unnerving. Yeah. And so fortunately your family loves you enough that you could be unknowing and unnerving enough around them that it didn't take much for that to come unraveled. And before you did too much damage, you escaped and were able to get away before that got really ugly and you did any real damage.
Yeah. I think that was caused by the fact that I stayed. I think if I had left like I wanted to, when at the point, when I was in the height of the emotional craziness, I think a whole different outcome would have taken place. If I'd have actually taken Michael and just said, I'm leaving, I'm done. Because there would have been no way to get to any kind of balance or resolution.
Yeah. When as we were talking tonight, for anybody that's interested, the way Jeff's mind works is there's usually a couple of tracks running at the same time. And one of the tracks running tonight was this idea of truth, control, the illusion of control, the desire for acceptance and connection. And when all those things are put on the table and they're confronted at the same time and they're not working out and the arrow's not pointing in the direction that I want it to, yeah, that's the perfect storm when Jeff loses his shit. Ultimately, what is a really quick button for me to lose my shit is when somebody questions my integrity or questions my ability or my intentions. My intentions, I'm a pretty generous guy, and I will do for you before I do for me. I usually put other people ahead of myself, maybe even to a fault at times. And when that's misunderstood or even turned around and brought against me, sometimes that's my perfect storm of the meltdown, of the misintention or something along those lines. With regard to control, this will be fun to kind of push into a little bit. I have found that my personality type, I actually go out of my way. I intentionally plan, and I invite other people to participate along with me to push the limits of what would be safe or sane or normal, or fill in the blank of whatever that would be. So I thrive in finding that fine, thin balance between control and out of control. And I love, at times, I can't live there all the time, but I love to push and play with and explore that razor thin line between in and out of control.
And what does that look like?
So what that would look like would be, we're sitting here in the harbor amongst 1,000 boats. And when I go fishing, I leave at nighttime and I'm driving out there into what literally is a black abyss. There are no headlights on the boat. There's a green light and a red light and a white light facing behind and no other lights. And oftentimes it's in cloudy conditions because there's a marine layer out here. So you're literally driving west, and like Hawaii is the next, land mass, and it's thousands of miles away. So there's nothing. You're driving into nothing, which is fine because there's freighters out there, there's cruise ships out there, there might be a random weather buoy or something. Chances are there's not a sailboat with no lights on it, so the chances of impact are very, very minimal. But yet you're moving and you have the sense of movement, but you have no sense of, I'm moving but I can't see anything. So there's this juxtaposition of motion and mass with energy behind it, but literally not being able to see 10 feet in front of the boat because there's just no light out there. There's starlight, you can look up if there's stars, but oftentimes there's clouds and you can't see anything. And it's going on and on and on and on, hours and hours and hours, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 hours to driving out into the middle of nowhere to this place on the GPS of, we think this is where the fish are and this is where we're going to spend the night. Most of the other guys will wait until just before light so they have sunshine to navigate with and they're not just operating off of a compass or a GPS. But I find that to be a challenge. And what I find to even be more of a challenge is I have 5 or 6 guys aboard with me that are they're laying and sleeping where you and I are sitting right now, or they're in the bunk bed, or they're asleep completely in a state of slumber and comfort while I'm driving into the abyss. And their life and my life are in my purview and my awareness of what's happening and and what is not happening. And that to me brings me into this heightened state of, it'll probably all go well, but there's a chance that it won't. And I've even heard, one night this boat ran into the Coronado Islands one night. The guy fell asleep, had it on autopilot, and just full on smashed right into the island. Yeah, how would that be to be a paid, merchant or customer on board that boat that night, and just go from I'm asleep to the boat at 15 miles an hour smashes into the rocks, and the next thing you know, your head is jammed up and water's pouring into the boat, and it's mayhem. I don't think anybody lost their life, but that's the so that that's one level of, I go out of my way to do that, and it's fun, it's adventurous for me. And it isn't that I hope it's all perfect. I love calm conditions and the best seas and all that, but every once in a while when it's not and the seas are rough and I've gone out in fog before and I have to turn the radar on, so it's GPS radar, no visibility at all, but we're still going. There's no reason not to. We have the skills and the ability and the equipment, and it's all working. And then like the flying thing too is flying is wonderful until it's not. And the racing as well. It's like finding that I'm most alive and most engaged in that fine line between in control, where it seems like everything is going fine and you can plan for it, versus out of control when the big wave comes, or I kind of nodded off for a moment and I didn't notice that white light that I thought was 5 miles away is really only a half a mile away, and it's a freaking freighter, and he's not changing his direction because he's doing the laws of seamanship, which is the big boat doesn't have to move, the smaller one has to move, and he's not moving. And I didn't notice it. Now it's too late, and there's a big huge wake that occurs, and we're all and it's wild, and it could have been a catastrophe, but it wasn't. Or the weather that comes up out of nowhere when you're flying, or airport conditions, or you got a bald tire, just all these little things that could happen. That to me is what, so it's like I almost practice in a way of getting close to and living in that place right on the edge of control versus out of control. And in those moments where it looks like things are going out of control, to be able to maintain the emotions and not let them get in the way and show up and overwhelm me, because that's the absolute wrong time for those to show up. Mm-hmm. I love that. I absolutely love that place. I don't know if this has anything at all to do with what you were experiencing, but your family loved you that night, and mm-hmm. you got to explore. That's me. What you were doing was the same thing as me going fishing on a really dark night, or flying when the weather's kind of sketchy and you're not really sure if you should go or not, but you go anyway because you trust you can do it, mm-hmm. and you do it, and you did, and it was the perfect storm, and the tsunami showed up, and it washed ashore, and you guys all survived, and hopefully there's hugs afterwards, and
there were,
and that's life. That's what we're here on the planet. That truly to me is what we're here on the planet to experience. If everything was atomic, or it's not the right word, if we were automatons, mm-hmm. And free from emotion, if we were the Spock in Star Trek, man, I don't want to play that game. Mm-hmm. If it's all logic and spreadsheets and flowcharts.
Well, I hadn't thought that led me to think about something to acknowledge, and that is trusting my process enough, and trusting one's process enough to go wherever the process leads you. And that's actually to me, is a really huge insight to my own experience, is that there has to be a level of trust in my own process to allow for that, and to stay with it, because the hardest part is being willing to walk from the beginning to the end, and not, trying to maintain integrity in it to the degree that I can, while still being true to what's going on. The things I'm really clear about in my experiences, I think a couple times I called him names out of frustration. Like I called him an asshole, or I called him a douchebag or something, just because that I was reacting to that pious, whatever that energy is that just drives me straight up the wall. But there's a certain amount of, and it's different from indulgence. And I think that's an important distinction. Maybe it's not an important distinction, but to me it seems important, because there's acting out, which can happen in the course of a process, but it's like being able to honor the acting out without causing damage, and sometimes you do. I don't know if that makes any sense. I think ultimately where I was going is just acknowledging, being willing to walk it. The trust and faith is walking it, even though you don't know what the hell's going on. Even when you go, how did I get here and why am I here? But how do I navigate to a better place? Mm-hmm. Which is really that piece of it really took over. So the training has worked in essence, in that ultimately, regardless of how horribly I was feeling, I could get more and more distance from attaching to the feeling, so that I could get into what I was saying before, where I could get to looking for the thread,
Mm-hmm.
You know, that it shifted the focus where now it wasn't reactive, and now the reactive piece was somewhat at bay. I could now bring my awareness to how did I get here, where and how do I continue to move back out, you know, or to the other end of it where I'm not in that triggered crazy place, you know, out of control place.
Right. Fear.
Fear.
Just fear. Just fear.
Interesting. So your perception is that ultimately for this experience, the fear is all the unknown
Yeah, absolutely.
of this giant change.
There's that. But
So
there's
the-
also family history. All that family history that you talked about is all part and parcel of it as well. And this idea of I don't matter. You matter. You got to matter to you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you what, my friend, you matter to me.
Thank you. I matter to me too, but
In that moment, my conjecture is you forgot that part. Because your brother convinced you that you don't to him, therefore you don't to you. You just forgot that part. I do this too. This is not me.
the moment of
When you entertain the idea that you don't matter to him, you didn't fill in the gap.
That wasn't even a conscious. I mean,
Well,
it
you
took
came
me,
to it. You
took me,
talked about it
It took me
tonight.
a while
Yeah,
to find
yeah,
that thread.
right.
But once it found it, it made total
Right.
sense. But
You
yeah.
got to always matter to you enough, and I have to always matter to me enough that no matter who is frickin' raining on my parade, bring the rain. Come on, help me do this even better.
Right. You gave
But
me
instead, we
permission.
say, "Oh no, I wanted sunny skies tonight. I wanted sunny skies tonight." How does that work? What's happening? I wanted sunny skies today, and rain has shown up. Instead of going, "Oh great, this is a training opportunity." The universe is telling me right now, in this moment, this is for you, Jim. This is for you, Jeff.
So that's such a curious thing, because where does that go for me? That goes for me to, I hear it and I can make sense of it, and at the same time I'm going, yeah, but why there? Why? What? Because I was surprised by the revelations I was discovering, but at the same time kind of going, is that real? Is that real? I mean, the emotion of it, I think the intensity of it, but I guess it's tough not to get hung up on how did I get there and why there, of all places.
Why not there?
Um,
Why not there? Why not let your
'Cause
spirit guides
never
and everybody else
done that.
involved take it there? Why not? Why can't that be the perfect training grounds, the perfect
what?
training opportunity?
Training opportunity
For Jim to love Jim, god damn it.
Oh, that. Oh, yeah. Yeah, because there was actually, Michael and I have had some conversation about, and I've even said the words out loud a couple times where I'll be getting a little intense and he'll say, dude, you're getting intense. And I'm like, yeah, sorry. I know. I got to be gentler with myself. I'm letting this get too intense and it doesn't need to be.
I need you to love me. We won't say those words. Our ego will not let us say those words. I need
all
you
of
to
the-
love me right now
Interesting.
because I'm not.
All of the end results that I talked about were exactly that. The way my mother looked at me, the way that Rose looked
Yeah,
at me, what
exactly.
my brother said, what even Jess, his wife, all she said, well, I said, I was giving her a hug before I left, and I said, hey, sorry this was so intense and so out of control, and all she said was, and I said, love you, and I'm glad to see you, and she said, I love you too, but remember, it's all unconditional. or something to that effect. But it was basically a statement of, it's unconditional. And I went, oh, wow, okay. But I think at that point it was hard to take in because it was so overwhelming. But, and maybe that's, to your point, maybe that's all that's left in the resolution, is just giving myself permission to feel that. That's where the resolution is. Yeah.
Several times tonight I've said I love you, and you push it back, right, like, well, I love you too, but I don't have the sense that you're really experiencing that.
Fair. And to be fair, it was the first time that you've expressed that in that fashion. So I was taking it in, not going, well, that's weird or anything like that. It was like, oh, well, yeah, of course, and I love him too. I mean, there was no, but it was, but yes, I agree with you. I wasn't able to just sit in it and take that in for what it was meant to be and what it was worth.
Mm-hmm.
True. So why, and this will be my contemplation on the way home, about why am I not feeling lovable?
Good stuff.
Well, but interesting, I forgot about this. Right in the middle of the conversation with them, with my brother, my mother, and all that going on, one of the threads that I did find that was helping pull me back into my space, and I'm talking out loud to the group, and I said, here's my issue. My issue is I didn't choose love in this situation, and I don't understand why.
Beautiful. Couldn't be a better thought.
I said those words.
Yeah,
to
could
the
not
group.
be a better thought.
That's the part of this that's very upsetting to me, is I am not choosing and have not chosen love yet. And I don't know why I'm not choosing it and why I'm not looking for it right now. And that's not normal for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my stasis
Right.
place. So that's even more disconcerting, because I'm like really clear that I'm not making that choice right now. And I'm going, oh. But I don't see a doorway either yet. So I'm like, that's still that same feeling of out of control, because I can't just go, oh, well, let me just open the door and step through, because there was all kind of whatever it was in the, but I actually said those words in the,
Yeah. As
between
much
my
as
rage fits.
as much of what I have been playing with in the last 3 weeks to a month of, I no longer believe there is truth. We're still going to have that word in our vocabulary, and it's going to slip out on occasion. But if there were some things that we could say seem to be true for me, meaning you can depend on it being repeatable and it might show up the next time you come to call upon it, one of those truths would be that if I'm brave enough to explore this experience of discontent to whatever level, and discontent can go from just that to rage and anything in between, that there's some aspect of fear that's having its way with me that I'm entertaining, and I think that's okay. Right now, if I were you, I think it would be okay for me to say, yeah, it's okay that there's a little fear going on here.
Yeah, and see, that's I think, and it's interesting that you chose that word and you chose that concept, because that's sort of the basis of my whole platform personally. Fear is a choice. It's the name of the book. It's my concept and understanding of fear is very clear in that, so I don't go there in my own thought process, if that makes any sense. So I've come to a point of clarity about it, to the degree that it's not, I don't keep it in the realm of possibilities.
consciously.
consciously.
Can you say that subconsciously or unconsciously?
Apparently not.
Apparently not.
Apparently not.
Which we've talked about
Which is
could be as much as
absolutely
95 freaking
extraordinary.
percent
Yep.
of the mind.
Isn't that
So
amazing?
good luck with that.
Good luck
Good luck with that, my friend.
Yeah, but so then it becomes about how do you respond? How do you engage it? How do you not engage it? That's so interesting.
Can I try to tackle that for a moment?
Yes, please.
Sometime in September, I'm hoping that I have another surgery. And the way that my surgeon has described the outcome is I'm going to either wake up with sutures in my knuckles and bands that cross each of the major knuckles and the first knuckles in your fingers, and also sutures in my wrist where a ligament has been stretched or cut and re-sewn so that my first group of knuckles can move. Right now there's no motion in the very first group of knuckles, all four of them. So I'm going to have this surgery, and he, during the surgery, is going to discover whether or not surgical procedure number 1 is possible, which is release the bands across each of the top of the knuckles and lengthen the ligament that's up here to allow this to happen in this hand. And you guys can't see this, but I'm moving my right hand with full range of motion, like, you know, you can move your knuckles 90 or more degrees, and my left hand doesn't move much. So that's one outcome, is I wake up and there's simply sutures where he's had to open up each of that area of my hand and do some work and then close it up. Or he's going to get in there and open the bands up and lengthen the tendon and still try to move this, each one of the knuckles, and they don't move enough, so that he's going to have to then create a suture here, drill into the bone, and put a rod in each of my fingers up to the first knuckle. So I'm going to have a metal, possibly, I'm going to have a metal rod from the first knuckle to the second knuckle on each of the four fingers, plus a device back here on the back part of the hand to force that down, to force all of those fingers down for 2 weeks. For 2 weeks, there's going to be a device on my hand that's somewhat open, somewhat closed, with rods that are coming out that can connect to this device that they're going to be able to manually tighten.
Oh, so like braces almost.
To force this down, yeah.
So
I freaking do not want that number. I don't want that option. Here I am.
See metal bars
yes.
across your going into your fingers.
I've woken up from surgery and had a metal rod sticking out of my hand here and a bar connecting them.
Oh yeah, to hold the bones together.
Going,
yeah.
Oh wow, that looks like that really hurts. As a matter of fact, it does. Metal coming through your skin is not something your brain goes,
that feels good. Yeah.
So anyway, sometime in September that's going to happen. And I'm going to go into the surgery not knowing what I'm going to be waking up to.
Wow. But isn't that
But I am going to wake up, and that is a path I want to travel. I want to travel that path regardless of whether it's the more easy or the more difficult one. I'm committed to it, and I want that experience. And so I am in the process of embracing both options.
Clarify, is it that you want that experience?
Well, I
or
want
you
the
want
result.
Your hand to move?
Yeah, I want my hand to move, and I'm willing to go through door number 1 or door number 2 in order to get there.
You want those experiences. What you want is the movement at the end. So you're willing to go through that to get
absolutely,
to the end result. Okay.
Which means I want those, either one of those. They're both fine. I'm told either one, great, do it. Do what you got to do, right? Do what you got to do, and I will deal with that. It's so funny.
Wow.
Because in my mind, I'm thinking, because I've had 12 surgeries, so I've had a whole bunch of experiences of waking up and then dealing with the level of pain or the success or not. Some of the surgeries were very successful. Some of them were not. There was one, for example, where my surgeon came up the next morning and said, okay, he's pointing to my index finger. He says, I want you to move that finger. And this one moves. And we both start laughing. I've told this story before. And then he goes, okay, I want this one to move. And my thumb moves. And then we both start laughing again. And he's like, well, it's not like there's a blue wire and a green wire and a yellow wire. And he goes, it's not like that. You like connect nerves and they do something.
Okay, right.
And we thought that we had pulled on or stimulated, and he's like, hey, I got one right, move that finger, and it moved. And he's goes, because when I first experienced, I'm like, am I gonna have to somehow relearn that one is actually this one? I mean, I was really confused. That's what made me laugh. I had no idea. I had no idea what I was dealing with or was I was waking up to. But anyway, in some ways, I do want my hand to work like it used to before my injury. And I have to be willing to go through what I know to be a very mundane level of pain of just regular sutures and they got to come out 10 days later or whatever, to freaking rods that have to be pulled out, right? They were put in, so they have to be pulled out. And 2 weeks of don't even freaking look at my hand, let alone try to get around it, because this is going to be like a big off limits. Don't even look at it because those are exposed and it's open tissue, and I've been there, but I've already done that once, and that's like a 2-week block of time of it'll feel like 2 years condensed, because everything will be about my hand. Right now it's kind of like I can it all works and I can live with it the way that it is, but I still want a little bit more than what it's able to do. Nevertheless, that's, to me, we're talking about fear, or at least I think I'm still talking about fear. I don't know what everybody else thinks we're talking about or what you think we're talking about, but I still think we're talking about fear. Of somehow coming to a resolution with, I'm going to go into the hospital, take my clothes off, put my gown on, be at peace with everything, give a zine a kiss, get wheeled in, go to sleep, and then wake up. And I'm going to wake up to one of those two outcomes. Wow. And that's somewhat like you going to Colorado. To me, they're very similar. You're going to get in a car, you're going to start this drive, and you're going to wake up, and one day you're going to be in Colorado, and you're either going to have rods in your freaking fingers, and it's going to be painful and hard, but it's going to be worth it, or it'll all just be, to come back and see me in 10 days and get your stitches out, and you'll be good, and then you can thank me.
Here's my story. I'm living through that one now. I'm living through the rods right now because I've already planned the other one. I've already intended and set the path for the ease and flow process. So that's okay, because this is the place where it's supposed to be challenging. So I'll let this be challenging so that once we hit the road, it's just going to be smooth sailing. And because truly, I love your focus in the idea of not giving myself permission to love myself.
Which blows my freaking mind, because you're so damn lovable. To me.
I think I'm a pretty good guy, but yeah, apparently I've been building up an arsenal of not loving myself stuff.
You've been collecting insults, right?
For some reasons. I think it's all tied, actually, in as Herculean an effort as it has been, from my experience, to navigate this path that I've been on with the closing of the center, and what I thought was my life work.
Dude, you had a center. Hello.
I know.
Whether it lasted a day
amazing.
or 10 years or whatever, you had a center.
There was a video. Oh, I'll show it to you later. There's a video on my timeline for that segment that they have on this day. So that if you go to the menu, there's an on this day, and on this day, you posted something over the last 6 years, and it shows you what those posts were. And one of them was the opening of my center. I had done a video to introduce people to the center. And so I'm walking around with my phone, walking through the center and I'm watching this video going, that was such an amazing space. Oh my God.
It was.
It's like, oh my God, I had that.
You did it.
I did that. And yeah,
So
that was such a cool thing.
Stay there for a moment. You did that.
Yeah.
That's like me saying, I did this or I did that, and it didn't have to last. You did it.
Yeah.
You did it.
Well, my point to it was the difference in my perception is it took me almost a year to, or a little longer, to actually come to the realization that this unfolding has been forward moving and positive. Not that I thought I was being punished or anything, more that I was wholeheartedly embracing the idea that this was all for my best benefit.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah.
And that what if that whole thing with Higher Brain living in the center was nothing more than a playground for me to learn. And I did, and I learned the snot out of it, and I had a blast, and now but it was setting me up for where I'm going next.
For those listening, Jeff is laughing his ass off right now because it is so much not a what if, it's a what was. Yes, it is all a lesson. You did it. Nobody can ever freaking take that away from you, Jim.
That's true.
You put a center together. You know how to put a center together. And in the ideal circumstances, and if it's supposed to last longer or whatever, it will. But you did it. Mm-hmm. And no one can ever take that away from you.
Nope.
And it rocked. I got to
amazing.
Experience it.
Yeah,
it was
amazing.
totally bitching.
And that's it's,
I was thinking, who is this rock star guy that's up there doing all these cool things? Those were my thoughts.
seriously, that's so cool.
I was there.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so was Timothy.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He was. That's fun. So we've had a pretty amazing conversation here tonight. Is there somewhere else we wanted to go with this?
No, I think we're probably at a point where we might put a summary on it. We usually try to do that. So certainly,
So
some of the things we
today's
talked.
Truth.
Truth, certainly we hit on that. That word came up a bunch. Yeah. We talked about control.
That would be my distillation, actually.
Yeah.
In the end,
From truth to control.
This
Yeah.
adventure in truth was about where's the love,
That's good. That's good.
because that's really what drives all of it.
You want to sing another bar of the song?
I was trying to remember the words. I could. Where is the love?
Well, that's the only important part, right?
Mine, oh mine, till the end of time. Was it just
Wow.
a lie?
Check you out.
Was it just a lie? Where is the love? Oh yeah, now I'm remembering. But anyway, so yeah, this I appreciate you encouraging this wonderful dialogue and going there. It's huge.
Yeah, good stuff tonight, Jim, for sure. Love that you're willing to be live and in the moment and present and open, transparent. And yeah, we're all learning, man.
Yeah.
We are all learning. It's definitely a come as you are party, and wake up and stay awake and learn as much as you can. Or you could choose to be asleep and listen to somebody else's podcast and or Netflix or HBO or whatever other people are doing tonight, and not judging any of those things by themselves. They're not a problem, but certainly in mass and with great habituality of repetitive exposure to all that, you're going to go to sleep and stay asleep. But I'm hoping that our audiences are playing the role of the contrarians there and not going down that path.
Yes.
And are willing to listen to a couple of guys that want to be open and transparent and ramble on for a couple of hours about what their experiences were this week. Yeah, that might be worth listening to.
Yep.
It may sound narcissistic in some way, and if it does, okay, I'm willing to own that. I wish I had something like this to listen to whenever.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, and
I
that's
really
part of
do.
What created it.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
to create that, and so now we get to do that, and that's pretty awesome.
Right on. Shall we say goodnight?
We shall.
And so
Thanks, everybody.
the next time we hear from Jim, he's not going to be in California anymore.
No, next time we'll be. Actually, next time we talk, I'll be in. Oh wait, Wednesday. I should be in Colorado.
Yeah.
That's the 4th, right?
What's funny about that to me is I'm going to actually be in Colorado before you are.
I know, you're going to be everywhere before me. It's like you're taking my trip ahead of me. What's up with that?
That's pretty
Or
wild.
I'm taking your trip after you. I don't know which way we go with this. Your birthday.
All right, guys.
Good night, everybody, and please don't forget to check out the Facebook page. You can check out, we post our podcasts, try to get them up every week, but you can go to our Facebook page, which is Adventures in Truth, or YouTube, Adventures in Truth Podcast. Everything is there. Like, subscribe, join us, have some fun, and thank you for listening. This is
Awesome.
where the awesome music will start to play soon.
Yeah? Okay. Good night.
Our trailer music.